Be ready for Capricorn. All right. So, Capricornus is the official name of this constellation, but obviously we all know it as Capricorn. Capricorn is located between Sagittarius and Aquarius here. To be real, Aquarius and Capricorn was officially my inspiration for astronomical astrology, if I think about it, because if you look at Aquarius here, you'll see Aquarius's arms stretching out over Capricorn. So I always considered this to be like Cap Aquarius. Now I consider it to be Capricorn because, now I like align things with astronomical astrology. But before I did that, I was like, oh, obviously Aquarius has some influence over Capricorn here, which it does. And now we know more of that based on star alignments. But yeah, so I had always thought that was really interesting. Capricorn is a very fascinating constellation. I have a Capricorn moon. I don't know if you have Capricorn placements or not, but let's get into it. All right, Capricornus, Capricorn. Okay, so we have multiple myths for Capricorn, just two myths. So the first one, we have the goat within Capricorn is, wait, hold on, wait for it. Oh, shoot, wrong name. So obviously, my names have been terrible this entire time. So, shoot. I looked it up earlier, but now I forget how to say it again. I think it's uh, Emil, Amalthea. Amalthea, that's what it was. So the goat within Capricorn is Amalthea. She is the goat that nursed Zeus when Rhea hid him from his father Cronus, Saturn, who had eaten all of his other siblings. So we've already talked about that a little bit based on other myths. We talked about her as well. But the second myth, or we talked about her when we talked about the myth of the Big Dipper, so the Big Bear. What is it called? Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. All right, so we talked about her there a little bit if you're like, oh, I've heard of her before. All right, so the second myth then is that this is Pan, all right? So half man, half goat. He was the son of Hermes, who was considered to be associated with Mercury. The more I think about, well, this is for another day maybe, but let me just promote what my thoughts are on this already. So I feel like Mercury as a planet existed by itself, and then these gods and goddesses decided to harness the energy of the planet. So it's not that they rule the planets, it's that they took over the energy of the planets in order to utilize the energy. Hopefully that makes sense because obviously these planets existed before the Greek gods did. So why do we associate them with each planet? It's because they harness the energy of that planet to do whatever they do with it. So myth two, Pan again, son of Hermes, Mercury, who is considered to be a trickster god. So Pan is quite literally a trickster god. And most people are like, what do you mean trickster god? It's like he literally talks about being a trickster god, and people often get tricked by trickster gods, which has been my big thing with Capricorn energy. Like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't be using Pan to symbolize this, but you'll see why as we keep going. So Pan was a forest deity. Crotus, who we talked about within Sagittarius, who was an archer, is Pan's son. And then during the Titan and Olympian War, Pan used a conch shell to scare off the Titans. And then when the monster Typhon was approaching, Pan turned himself into a sea goat and jumped into the Nile River, faking his own death. And the big saying here is, the great Pan is dead, the great Pan is dead. But essentially, he just wanted everybody to think that so that he could go on and continue living, essentially. All right, so Pan is also depicted as the Baphomet, or some people say it differently, but I don't respect this deity, so I don't really care about the name, if that makes sense. Which is quite literally Satanism's scapegoat and front man. So if when you look at Satanism and when you look at people, I think like J.K. Rowling has these tattoos on her. So if you're like, yeah, Harry Potter, it's like, yeah, also Satanism, but she got a lot of her inspiration from the occult, which a lot of Satanism morphs itself around the occult, but they are not the same thing. So anyway, so this is, yes, again, Satanism's scapegoat is Pan, and half man, half goat here. Also notable, the Devil card in tarot is linked to Capricorn archetype within astrology. Goats are typically used within ritual sacrifices. It's pretty crazy that people are all like, I'm the goat, they're the goat. It's like, yeah, okay, well, goats are sacrificed. So obviously we've made it to greatest of all time, but that is another pan trick to use goats more. Kind of sad, honestly. But anyway, in the Bible, a scapegoat is one of a pair of kid goats. So there's two goats that is released into the wilderness, taking all the sins and impurities, while the other is sacrificed. So one goat goes into the wilderness, one goat stays and is killed and sacrificed. And I don't know if they're eaten. I would hope so, though. But I mean, to not waste it, but still. So these are all depictions of Pan here. This is exactly what you think it is. But like, granted, he was half man, half goat. But yeah, there's just a lot happening with this energy. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Pan, but it does show you where some of the dysfunction within the Capricorn archetype definitely comes from. So just because, these are the myths associated currently doesn't mean that they have to be as we move through time. They could have just been, oh, we used to associate it with that, but not anymore type thing, which is kind of where I'm trying to get the collective to. But obviously, there's still a bunch of stuff that we have to work out based on the damage that this archetype has done. So, Capricorn mythology continued. This could also be seen as the seahorse and not a sea goat, because what the fuck is a sea goat? But anyway, excuse me, the hippocampi were the seahorses, excuse me, that pulled the chariot of Poseidon. Poseidon created horses out of the oceans, waves, and to create the most beautiful animal on earth. The part of the brain, hippocampus, that we can see right here, resembles the seahorse, aka hippocampi, which is where it got its name. So a lot of very interesting mythology here and archetypal energy to tap into potentially in the future. Capricorn astrological interpretations, a lot of them. So because there's dense mythology here, we're obviously going to have a pretty long list of astrological interpretations or characteristics that these people might have. So anywhere on this list, if somebody has Capricorn placements, they may be nurturing to those in need, keeping things hidden from others, can be very much trickster energy into the nature and forest. Again, Capricorn is an earth sign, which is interesting, but may have fae or fairy lineage, protective of self and others. I do see like horse to see horse. Because obviously, like the whole thing right now with Capricorn energy is goat to see goat, but I don't know. It's both. It's both because they both exist. Both timelines exist. Whatever. Okay. So protective of self and others might have to disappear at some point for safety reasons. That could be who knows what. That could be a lot of different things. That could be somebody's trying to stalk you. That could be somebody's trying to kill you. I don't even know. But maybe the scapegoat in a narcissistic family structure, like all the problems in the family are put onto you or that person that has Capricorn placements because everybody else is too like, I don't want to deal with my problems. It's them. It's like, it's all of you, but whatever. So family lines may be into the occult, sacrifice in some way. That could be them being sacrificed. That could be them making a sacrifice. There's a lot of different ways that could go. These people possess a lot of strength, a lot of power, a ton of perseverance. This is fatherhood energy as well. Very resourceful, and then awareness of needs and emotions. I could also see fatherhood being like single motherhood to have to like play both roles. So I can see that playing out here too, potentially. All right, so Cygnus is our first aligned constellation with Capricorn. It takes up pretty much the whole thing. We have from 0 to 22 degrees here. We can look and see Cygnus up here above Capricorn or to the north of Cygnus mythology. There's a lot of myths associated with this constellation. This is overall, though, this is the swan. All right. So, in one story, Zeus turned himself into a swan in order to seduce the queen of Sparta, Leda. And on the same night, her and Zeus had sex. She also had sex with her husband. So, she had sex with two different men in one night, Zeus and her husband. Okay. Leda, the queen of Sparta. So, this created a set of twins, but one father was Zeus and the other was her husband's or her husband was the father of the second child, King Tyndareus. The twins are Castor and Pollux, the twins that are represented in Gemini, which we talked about. Castor is the mortal son of the king, and Pollux is the immortal son of Zeus. All right. So, in another myth, though, this states that the swan is Orpheus, the Greek musician and poet that was gifted a lyre, which we see in Lyra by Apollo. Orpheus refused to worship and honor Dionysus and was killed for not doing that. After he died, he turned into a swan and was placed in the sky along with his harp and lyre. So if you look back here, we see the swan right next to the harp. So that is that story, which I kind of like that version, to be real. But in other stories, there's a lot of different ones here. So there's three different guys named Cygnus, no one's sure. The son of Ares who lost a duel with Hercules. So this might be him. It also might be the son of Poseidon who fought in the Trojan War and was defeated by Achilles. A lot of dying here. I don't think that those two are like the best ones to go with. And then the third, this Cygnus was a close I said form again. I meant to say friend. A close friend of Phaeton, who was the mortal son of the god Helios. So Phaeton and Cygnus were racing across the sky and flew too close to the sun, and their chariots were destroyed. Not great, guys. Not great. Shouldn't. I feel like that's a very common myth. Like, shouldn't they have known that they can't do that? Whatever. They fell to earth and Cygnus died, his body falling into the river Eridanus, no one sure again. Phaeton wanted to get his friend's body for a proper burial so his soul could pass on. And Phaeton then made a deal with Zeus that if he was able to turn into a swan and live only as long as swans lived, then he could get his friend's body. Zeus was like, yeah, that's fine. That's a fair deal. So Zeus allowed it and they put him into the sky as a swan. Very noble. All right, so the astrological interpretations of somebody has alignments with this energy. They may be a shapeshifter, might change appearances frequently. That can be on purpose or not on purpose. So competing over a significant other might be something that happens within their life, might have multiple baby dads or baby moms or kids by multiple people, very high sex drive, a want and a need for adventure, taking massive risks, might get into fights and arguments that they can't win, passionate, musical, or into music in some way, and a refusal to bow down, honor gods or people or things that are not in alignment with them, which is like respectable, but also, don't die over dumb shit. So, Pavo is the next constellation. So if somebody has Capricorn 2 degrees, 5 degrees, or 17 degrees, they will have an alignment with Pavo here. The brightest star here being 2, which is or at 2 degrees, which is literally the star called Peacock at 1.85 brightness. So that one's fairly bright in comparison to the others. All right, so Pavo, it was Hera's sacred bird. As we can see here, it is a massive peacock. So Hera's chariot was pulled by peacocks. When Zeus fell in love with Io, which is one of the Taurus myths, if you remember back to that, Io was a nymph and priestess of Hera, and Zeus turned her into a cow to protect her from Hera once Hera was kind of like catching on to what was going on between the two. So I mean, like, I do think that Zeus did genuinely care for her on some level. Otherwise, he just would have let Hera destroy her. But he was like, let me turn you into a cow so she doesn't realize. Like, bro. Anyway, so Hera was onto Zeus because this is not Zeus's first time cheating or being a douchebag to her. So, I mean, they just should have not been together. Every single time I talk about them, I'm just like, why are they dating? Like, why are they together? Why are they married? Obviously, power purposes. I do not think there's any love between them at all. Um, anyway, whatever. Not my problem. Actually, it's all of our problem. And that's maybe why I'm so mad because it's literally all of our problems. Because again, mythology is just alien history that's been hidden and occulted from us. So we're still playing out all of these stupid fucking archetypes based on people that, couldn't get their stuff together, but whatever. And that's life, I guess. So Hera was like, bro, what the hell? What are you doing? So she had the giant Argus to guard this cow because she was like, no, I'm having somebody camp out to look out for this cow because I know you're up to something. So Argus was a giant with 100 eyes, which made him the perfect being for the watchman job because obviously you can see in all directions. Zeus found out what was happening and sent Hermes to go save Io. So Hermes disguised himself as a shepherd because he could shapeshift into anything he wanted and spent all day talking with Argus until Argus fell asleep. When Argus fell asleep, Hermes killed him with a rock. Like I don't even think he had to do all that. Like, couldn't he just killed him? But he decided to sit there all day with them. Anyway, so Hera then placed his eyes onto her sacred bird's tail and placed him into the sky. All right. So if somebody has Pavo astrological alignments, they might be very observational as a person. They may be watchful of others' moves. So if you're dealing with somebody with a Pavo placement and you're like, oh, they're not paying attention to me. Yes, they are. Yes, they fucking are. So trusted for important tasks and jobs, they might work for an evil or harmful boss or company. Stands out from the crowd, flashy appearance, but these people also may be used by others. All right, Delphinus constellation. If somebody has 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 degrees Capricorn, they will have alignments to this. So this is a pretty rare alignment. It only impacts these 5 degrees of the entire zodiac because it only aligns with Capricorn. So I think that's kind of interesting. Not the brightest constellation in the world, but significant nonetheless. So the first myth here is, go back. All right, oh my God, I'm trying to move my face. It's not, okay, there we go. All right, so the first myth here is Poseidon's messenger this was Poseidon's messenger dolphin, all right, his little sea creature messenger guy. And when the mermaids had seen him, hold on, wait a minute. Amph
Amphitrite.
Amphitrite. All right, thank you, Google. All right, so when Amphitrite, who was a mermaid and sea nymph, resisted Poseidon, he sent his messenger, the dolphin, to find her and bring her to him. So essentially kidnap her. The dolphin found her, calmed her down, and convinced her to come to Poseidon with him. And eventually Poseidon married her because he would. All right. So the second myth is a singer and musician named Arion was on his way back from a concert tour. So he was traveling all over, singing, doing his thing, which is kind of funny because like we know that artists go on tour current day, but I don't think any of us ever thought back to these times like, oh, no, musical artists still went on tour. They just like had to go on boats and stuff, right? So that's pretty crazy because we live in a world where, they have one show, one place, one day, and the next day it's a completely different city. So where these people, obviously just took a lot longer for them to go on tour. But anyway, so the sailors on the boat he was being transported on they're like, oh, this guy's made money. Like he had all these shows, all this whatever. So they started being like, we're gonna rob him. And so, bro. But Arya, I mean, he was not a dumb guy. He was pretty smart. So he was catching on and he asked them if he could play one last song. And with this song, he was like, you know what? I gotta get rid of these guys. I'm gonna call in this dolphin, basically. And so when the dolphin came, he jumped into the water and the dolphins carried him back to Greece. So Apollo, the god of music and the sun god, ended up placing the dolphins in the sky out of gratitude. Love that. A nice Apollo story. Thank you, Apollo. Okay. Delphinus, astrological interpretation. So these people are messengers, so writers, speakers, poets, lyricists of some shape or form. I could also see this as being like news anchor or somebody that's like in broadcasting of some sort. Yeah. So these people are very convincing, very calming, helpful, able to get people out of challenging situations, travelers, wise, intuitive, knows what to say and how to say certain things, but they also do have the ability to manipulate. And I feel like all of these pictures, they look evil as fuck. So, I mean, maybe like they're like low-key evil. I don't know. But I feel like dolphins are kind of low-key evil if you look at like how they are in like dolphin culture. I don't know. Maybe they're like killer whales kind of, but whatever. You get it. So astrologically though, we'll stick with that for today. There may be other ones though. Let me know if you find out. All right, so Indus is the next constellation. The star alignments here we have 4, 5, 8, and 15. Again, pretty dull. The brightest one here being 4 degrees Alpha Indi. So this impacts Capricorn from 4 to 15. It is below Capricorn or south of if you are in the northern hemisphere. All right. So Indus mythology. I do think that the astrological interpretations for this one could be broadened potentially. So if you do have thoughts, I would love to hear them. And like, okay, so I was actually thinking, like, if you do legitimately have thoughts that you are like, oh, I feel like this information needs to be in this course, let me know because we could probably work something out as far as like additional information from multiple sources. Like I don't know. I think it's important, and I'm willing to potentially like pay people to contribute as well. I don't know what or how that would look like, but just in my head, I'm like, yeah, I could foresee that being a thing. So if you're going through this and you're like, oh my God, I'm so pulled to write, you know, astrological interpretations for these alignments, please, by all means, let me know because this is off the like top of my head. I did go deep in some of them. It could be deeper, is my point. All right, so Indus mythology, an indigenous person. The mythology is unclear where this person in Indus originates between, we're not sure, but these are the most common ideas or like where it goes back to the East Indies, Madagascar, or South Africa. It is this person is depicted as holding arrows or a spear. So depending I think maybe both, but depending which hand, I think does change throughout different representations. And then hunting Pavo, which is Hera's sacred bird, which is very interesting and potentially has a lot of implications. Okay, so I'm actually even thinking of more than I said originally. But one could probably, if we want to think, you guys have probably seen the movie Avatar, right? So in Avatar, there are these indigenous people on this planet, and then we see white people essentially come in and colonize everything, which is like a horrifying but very common theme. So I am kind of seeing Indus versus Pavo, like Hera being the colonizer and the indigenous people fighting back against colonization. So I can kind of see that playing out here. As well. So, Indus astrological interpretation, then. So, fighting back against colonization, quite literally, Pavo Hera. These people traditionally live in an alignment or a balance with nature, providing for oneself or like utilizing what they have within nature to provide for themselves, an ability to overcome obstacles and challenges, and then a massive survival instinct for these people as well. All right, Microscopium constellation. So 7, 10, and 15 degrees. Capricorn 7 barely, but I did include it. So that is right underneath Capricorn, so within very close proximity to it. Microscopium mythology. A compound microscope is what this technically is. So compound microscopes, it uses two sets of lenses, the ocular lens, the eye, and then the objective lens for the object, ocular eye, objective object. You get it. Maybe you don't, but that's fine. All right, so performs high magnification of an object. All right. So, observe small objects that cannot be otherwise seen, such as cell structures, blood, and water organisms. Bends light to make an object appear larger. So, utilizes light in order for you to see something, make it bigger. Very interesting. All right. So, astrologically, then. these people might have an intense interest or ability to look into small details of things, people, different situations. They might appear to have more light than they really do, like appearances. So, like, for example, if you know somebody and they're like, wow, that person's a really good person, it's like, maybe they aren't though. Okay, so sometimes these people have the ability to appear more like pure or light or good than they actually are. Seeing things with multiple perspectives and then might end up hyper focusing on some things. And these people might be very good at scientific research or an interest in scientific topics in general. All right. Next up, we have Aquarius. So, like I said, Aquarius stretches over the top of Capricorn here. So, there are actually only two direct alignments to Aquarius energy, though, with 17 degrees and 18 degrees within Capricorn. All right, Aquarius myth number one. Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Ganymede.
Ganymede, thank you. Ganymede. All right, so Ganymede was the son of King Tros. Zeus, who was shot by the arrow of Eros, which we learned about in Sagitta, fell in love with the young man. And in some months he was still a child. So don't love that. But he was shot, but like to be fair, this one wasn't necessarily Zeus's bad. I mean, it was because but he was shot by the arrow of Eros. So I do blame Eros more so than Zeus for this one, but that's just this one, to be clear. All right, so Zeus sent his eagle, Aquila, to bring Ganymede. Oh man, I just pronounced it, but anyway, Ganymede to Olympus to serve as cupbearer. A cupbearer was the person that pours and serves drinks to the royal table. So basically a servant, a cup servant, which is kind of crazy because we're all like, Aquarius, the water bear. It's like Loki, that was just a servant to the gods at their little royal table. Great, awesome, love that. I hate that, but whatever. In the second myth, Deucalion, son of Prometheus, he survived the Great Flood along with his wife Pyra? Not sure. But anyway, we can see Ganymede on Aquila here, riding to Zeus to become his cupbearer. All right. Another myth, it goes way back. This god is very interesting. There's a lot of this is Poseidon in a past life as well. So Babylonians considered this constellation to be Ea, the Great One, and then Ea or Ea is equivalent of Sumerian Enki. So Enki, Poseidon, same god. Ritual of purification, where we get baptism from. Ritual waters were called Ea's waters. Known for sorcery and incantations, bearer of culture, wise, clever, cunning, and devious. All right, so a lot of really interesting energies here when we get into Aquarius, especially if we do associate this energy a little bit with Enki. An additional Aquarius mythology. There's a lot of myths here. Aquarius is a lot of myths. So Egyptians considered this constellation to be Happy, the god of the Nile. Natural fertility is associated with this. Annual flooding of the Nile River. The Nile was thought to have flown through the land of the dead, the heavens, and then into Egypt. So very interesting, like yeah, path here. The Lord of Fishes and the Birds of the Marshes. So that is who that is. All right. Astrologically, a lot of different things happening here. These people may be the target of child sexual abuse from elders. They may have a really big survival instinct, traveling far from home or away from their origin point for, college life, wherever. Divination abilities, sorcery, incantations, which are a series of words said as a magical spell or charm. Wise, clever, devious, cunning, respected, ritualistic, and then fertile, which can be creative in a lot of ways. That could be ideas, babies, a lot of different interpretations for that. All right, Cepheus. we have star alignments at 15 degrees and 17 degrees. Cephus is really far up north. So if we follow, I believe, like this one down, so again, we're going off of these lines. So if we follow this straight down to the sun's ecliptic path, we see it in alignment with Capricorn. But if you just looked at it, you might be like, that's not really in alignment. But if you go off of the actual astronomy of it all, you're like, oh, weird. That is an alignment. So impacts the end degrees of Capricorn, 15 to 23 degrees here. All right, so Cephus, this is the King constellation. Cephas was the father of Andromeda, who we talked about earlier. Obviously, if you're going through this, you can click on any of these and they will bring you to whatever slide we talked about it. Also, guys, so as I update this and as I find typing and spelling errors or I'm adding additional information, if you have purchased this course once, I will forever send out the updates. Okay, so I'm never gonna add things and be like, pay me again. Like, shut the fuck up. So yeah, no, I'm always just gonna give you guys the update because that's the correct thing to do. Anyway, all right. So this guy was the husband of the vain wife Cassiopeia. I should have linked that. We talked about her as well. The floods were ravaging his land, which is modern day Egypt and Jordan. And because his wife bragged about her, her and his daughter Andromeda's beauty, saying she was more beautiful than the sea nymphs, and this was not the right thing to do because um this made Poseidon mad because why would you do that? So he went to the oracle with his wife and they were told to sacrifice Andromeda to Cetus to appease Poseidon's wrath and save their land because the floods were ravaging it because of what his wife had said. Because Poseidon was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to destroy you now. Crazy. So, constellation. All right. So, constellation houses an ultra massive black hole, one of the largest currently known. So, I accidentally did not take this out, but this is more corresponding with Aries. So, don't think about that too much right now. All right. So, Cephas astrological interpretations. Choose your wife or your significant other wisely as to not end up sacrificing children, okay, because of wife's attitude or vanity. I guess that could also be seen for husbands. So just choose significant other wisely so you don't end up sacrificing your kids because they're stupid. All right, so may have to make hard choices between children and business or like kingdom, may expect to be treated like royalty, and then these people may have boss, owner, or just like controlling energy overall. They may sacrifice their children in one way or another for personal gain. Hate that. All right. Aquilus, I think is how you say this one. So this impacts Capricorn from 13 to 16, but it only has alignments at 13 and 14 degrees. We can see this one right up here, right next to Pegasus and above Aquarius here too, but aligned with Capricorn still. All right, Aquilus is a foal or a little horse. Oops. Sorry about that. All right, so Aquilus is a foal or a little horse. In the first myth, we see Solaris, who is a foal given to Castor. If we remember, he was one of the Gemini twins by Hermes. All right, and then Solaris means speed or swiftness. So we see Aquilus here, Pegasus here. The foal was either the brother or the son of Pegasus, the winged horse. In the second myth, Hippie, the daughter of Chiron in Sagittarius, was seduced by Aeolus and got pregnant. She was ashamed and didn't want Chiron to find out, so she went to go hide in the mountains until she gave birth. Yikes. Chiron came looking for her and she prayed to the gods to help her hide and was turned into a horse because she didn't want her dad to find out. She eventually gave birth to her daughter Melanippe or Melanippe. I'm not sure. All right, so astrological interpretations. If somebody does have alignments here, they may be fast-moving people. They may have a teen pregnancy or a pregnancy that their parent wouldn't approve of. So that might be, like if your parents are racist or if you got pregnant by a bummy dude, you know what I mean? Something like that. So not just something that your parents would be like, what are you doing? Not the main character and somebody's wingman, wingwoman, so they might feel like that. Very into nature and the natural world. They might be into riding horses or just horses in general, and they might move around a lot within life and live in multiple locations. Okay, then we have Pegasus. So, Pegasus, we just have barely at the end of Capricorn, just the nose of Pegasus is in alignment with Capricorn here. A fairly like two stars though, and fairly bright with this 2.531 Enif. All right. So, Pegasus mythology, a white-winged horse, came from the neck of Medusa after Perseus beheaded her. Crazy. Which is like, how did that happen also? But that's the mythology. It was probably actually, now that I think about it, it was probably like the used the energy of killing Medusa in order to create the energy of Pegasus. Weirdly, wouldn't that make Pegasus aligned with Medusa, or at least like energetic signature, whatever. That may be a question for you to answer. I don't know. All right, so Medusa used to be a mortal woman, but Poseidon, everyone's favorite god, not really, raped her in Athena's temple. All right, as punishment, which this is a crazy move on Athena's part. As punishment, Athena turned her into a gorgon with a snake for hair, and whenever she looked at someone, they would instantly turn to stone. So it's like, oh, she got raped and she got punished for being raped. Cool. Awesome. Hate that. All right. Pegasus is an offspring of Poseidon. Pegi in Greek means springs or waters. Pegasus flew to Mount Helicon to live with the Muses and created a spring with his hoof. Anyone who drank from the spring would be blessed with the ability to write poetry. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't. All right. Zeus eventually got a hold of Pegasus and used the horse to carry his thunder and lightning bolts. So essentially, like, I feel like Pegasus was just out here living with the muses, making some springs, like being chill, living his life. And then Zeus was like, oh, you're powerful. Come carry my thunder and lightning bolts. Like, you fucking dick. Anyway, Pegasus astrological interpretations more able than most in whatever they choose to pursue. So just good at life in general, or like the ability to be good if they apply themselves. These people might have a traumatic birth. They might enjoy being around water. They might be very adventurous, able to be tamed under the right conditions. Again, under the right conditions, not easily. Poetry, writing, they might be very natural at that or appreciate and enjoy that. They may be able to make friends fairly easily, and they also might be used for their intelligence, abilities, and power, which we hate. All right. Piscis Austrinus constellation. We see this underneath. So this is interesting because this is very much like Pisces energy, but in alignment with Capricorn and Aquarius. So keeping that in mind, again, this only impacts Capricorn at its latest degree, and this is a very dim star to even count. So I don't think that this energy is very pronounced within Capricorn, but it does exist. All right. Or maybe these pictures are just evil. Maybe the Delphinus isn't actually evil. Maybe it's just these pictures and how they show it, because this looks crazy. And then also, is this Delphinus? I think it might be. Anyway, this is Pisces though. All right, Pisces Austrinus. The southern fish. The Babylonians called this mulku or fish. This Syrian mythology, the goddess Atargatis, who was a fertility goddess, once fell into a lake and was rescued by a large fish. She would later punish all those who ate fish, even though her priests ate fish daily. She was like, which, whatever. The logic does not logic, but that's fine. We're just talking about crazy people in mythology. All right. So the Greeks called this the great fish, swallowing the water, or it's seen swallowing the waters of Aquarius. And then the two fish in Pisces are the children of this fish, according to the Greeks. But that doesn't include, well, we'll talk about Pisces in a little bit, but the math will math on that one in a second. So Egyptians, fish that saved Isis from drowning and then it was placed into the sky. So if that's the case, then we should go kill that fish and let Isis drown, but whatever. So Pisces, oopsie, Pisces Austrinus astrological interpretation. So if somebody does have these alignments here, yeah, this like we want it to look magical and it just doesn't, right? It just looks a little bit evil. I think it's the teeth. Yeah, it is. It's the teeth. But here's a clear depiction of it drinking the waters from Aquarius. All right. So these people might feel the need to rescue or save others, which is the themes are theming, they really are. They seek knowledge and information in general, producing magical or spiritually gifted children, help people even if they don't necessarily deserve it, which is tragic but necessary at times, and able to deal with varied emotional states and like still keep their composure. So that is Capricorn. Hopefully you learned a thing or three. I know I did. Next up, we will be talking about Aquarius. Obviously, Capricorn and Aquarius do have some overlaps here, so some of the things I say will be repeats, but there are some new constellations to look into as well. All right. Cool, 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 cool.